Right now on NBC5 News.
Then NBC5 investigates
Why thousands of residents in Chicago high-rises may not be as safe as possible in a fire.
Live from NBC5, this is the NBC5 News at 10.
And why thousands of residents in Chicago high-rises may not be as safe as possible in a fire. NBC5 investigates.
Now NBC5 investigates. There are just 2 months to go before a big deadline expires for Chicago high-rises to comply with a fire ordinance.
And now we have learned dozens of buildings are being taken to court for failing to comply. Here's NBC5's Phil Rogers.
When 6 people died in this fire in the county administration building in 2003, there were immediate calls to install fire sprinklers in every residential high-rise in Chicago which didn't have them. That didn't happen. Instead, the city adopted a multi-year plan requiring what's called a life safety evaluation, mandating features like two-way communications, self-closing doors, and automatic recall to prevent elevators from traveling to the fire floor. Buildings were supposed to have their plans in place by January 2006, with all work to be finished 3 years later. But in December 2009, NBC5 Investigates discovered hundreds of buildings had either filed faulty plans or ignored the law completely.
How many buildings have you fined?
No buildings have been fined.
Richard Minacchio was Chicago Building Commissioner.
Safety is not being compromised one iota under what has happened.
That might have been a tough sell for residents of this Chestnut Street high-rise where a woman died in a fire just 1 week earlier. Then another shocking fire at 3130 North Lakeshore Drive where 32-year-old Chantel McCoy rode an elevator to her death.
Doors opened up and she was hit with the heat and smoke.
Compliance with the ordinance was so lax that just a few weeks before that fire, the city basically said it had no choice but to extend the deadline. And that new deadline expires December 31st.
This deadline is not moving.
Once again, NBC5 Investigates analyzed the numbers. Of the 729 buildings which must comply with the high-rise fire law, even now fewer than a quarter have passed, although more inspections happen daily. But dozens of buildings have flouted the law completely.
We've referred 43 buildings to court because those buildings haven't given the basic element of providing a plan, which is really the roadmap for how they were going to make those buildings safe.
One decision by a building trumps everything else, installing sprinklers, even though the city chose not to require it. And 87 buildings are doing just that.
Everybody was in agreement that sprinklers were the way to go.
Residents here at 400 West Deming voted overwhelmingly to spend over $1 million to install sprinklers.
I think for all of us on the board, safety is really our first priority.
So, 11 years after the county building fire, which almost certainly would have been put out by a single sprinkler head, the city says its ordinance is finally about to bear fruit. In most buildings, it won't mean the sprinklers, which fire professionals say are the gold standard of protection, but it is something.
No more extensions.
No more extensions.
We should note that the building department has been very aggressive to get buildings into compliance. Of the over 700 buildings involved, 677 have filed accepted plans, and nearly 300 inspections are still scheduled between now and the end of the year to determine if they pass muster. Any who don't, the city says, will be taken to court as of December 31st. Phil Rogers, NBC5 Investigates.